Welcome in to the PFF podcast. Steve Palazzolo back here with Sam Monson. It is your Week 6 Week in Review. If you guys are new to the PFF podcast, please hit that subscribe button. We've got 4 big episodes every single week, starting with the review today. Sam, I just like reading the notes that you send me to kind of kick things off. What do we have? General WTF. Why the face? Season continues today. This week. Another crazy one.
Yeah, the Giants, the 0-5 Giants went into Denver and, of course, beat the Broncos, who only looked good at home, because why wouldn't that happen the way this season is going? And it was weird. This is one where every season you seem to get at least one game where there's no way that a specific team can win the game. Every single logical thing points against them, and they end up winning that week for no other reason than just to upset the apple cart. This was that game if I had seen it coming, but because the rest of this year had been so completely crazy, it just seemed like another game. But with everything was on the wall if you'd had a look at this game going into it. No conceivable way the Giants could win this game, down to like nobody at receiver, a makeshift right tackle going against Von Miller, playing in Denver where the Broncos look like a completely different outfit. Those no receivers going up against arguably the best secondary in the NFL.
Right.
There's just no way they could win this game. And so, of course, they do.
I think we all underestimated the new play caller. A new play caller in New York. Ben McAdoo giving up play calling duties.
Because the team needed him.
And that's it. The team needed McAdoo in other areas.
Yeah.
So this is where I always come back to. At what point in the season do you completely forget about last year and, preseason projections? Because even though we had in the preseason said, hey, this probably a regression season for the Giants. If this was a week 1 game with no 2017 evidence, we'd be like, hey, this should be a pretty good game. We think the Giants are going to regress a little bit. We think the Broncos are going to regress a little bit. But they're still both pretty good teams. They're defenses that really challenge opposing quarterbacks. But we're here 5 weeks into the season, and there's a lot of evidence that say the Giants are not good. All the stuff that you mentioned, plus, again, losing all of their receivers. So maybe there's still a little bit of leeway to go back to what we thought they were going to be before the season. So you're not as bad as your 0-5, and the Broncos aren't as good as the 3-1 coming into the game.
I think collectively that makes some sense in terms of the defense played like we were expecting the defense to play.
Oh, yeah.
Rolling into this season.
Every throw, they were challenging it. They were knocking balls down left and right. It felt like every window that Simeon had to throw into was tight, like last year.
Yeah, and heading into the season, that was supposed to be the strength of this team. Because last year it was, and we were saying that it needed to be because the offense may not be that good, and this defense would need to carry it. But it's the individual level that's surprising. Jason Pierre-Paul remembered that he was a really good pass rusher. Just destroyed the Broncos. Granted, Menelik Watson and Menelik Watson's backup is going to help with that.
I'm pointing to our Watson tracker right here.
Which is also a pink sticky note.
We have a pink sticky note that says Watson, OT, sacks given up in 3rd grade handwriting from Taylor.
Yeah, so 2 trackers on the wall. The Des Bryant PD tracker, which hasn't advanced because the Cowboys were on a bye.
We think that's PD tracker. It could be PA tracker.
Well, it's supposed to be PD tracker, yeah.
It looks like it's a PA tracker.
It does. But anyway, so Menelik Watson at right tackle.
Check our Instagram account. We'll give you guys an update.
And then Billy Turner at right tackle is going to help make Jason Pierre-Paul remember that he's actually a pretty good player. But the rest of that defense looked really good as well, despite being shorn of Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie with suspension. But this was the Giants that we kind of expected to see, and that part of it makes sense. But like you say, no receivers didn't matter. Denver actually playing well at home didn't. So it was just one of those games.
Yeah. So on the other hand, I was expecting Denver to regress a little bit this year because of that offense. Trevor Siemian, rough game combined with that Giants tight coverage. So just one of those games that sneaks up in the middle of the season where teams creep back toward the center and back toward where they probably should have been coming into the year.
This is one of those ones that I don't think you even feel bad for predicting the other way, because what did I say?
No, everything on paper was on the other end of the spectrum. Look, the biggest thing to me, besides being in Denver, where the Broncos have been a completely different team, was simply the receivers.
Yeah.
Right? You've got no receivers going up against those great cornerbacks in Denver. I know you've already said that, but to me, that was like, Eli, man, how is Eli going to find anybody?
Yeah.
But they were more creative. They used Evan Ingram a lot more, and they did a nice job there.
And the only things that got it right on Pick Watch were, one, the road teams, and two, Jason LaCamfort. Those are the only people that picked the Giants to win that game.
Let's fly through a couple of the other crazy games from the week. The Jets come out, they're up 14-0 on the New England Patriots, and it looks something like that. You know, everybody's laughing at the Jets. They're 3-2, and the Patriots are 3-2. That's so fun. We know that's not gonna last. They're up 14-0. Their offense is rolling early on, especially in the pass game. Just continue to convert third down after third down. People have made the point before, when you're up on the Patriots, you have to stay aggressive, right? You can't sit on a 14-point lead against New England. You probably can't sit on a 25-point lead against New England sometimes. So the Jets got a little conservative at one point, 3-and-outs, running the ball left and right. You have to just stay on it, and because eventually the better team is going to win out, and the Patriots are just more talented.
What about 28-point leads?
28-point leads? When did that happen?
Oh, what was it 28? Oh no, 25-point.
That's
lead,
why I
right?
said 25. Yeah,
clever.
Yes,
I didn't get that.
So that was so you just called me out. That was a small dig at Falcons fans.
Yeah, no, I've turned into a big one. But I've also they got called out for doing that, for essentially going for the jugular.
The Falcons.
Yeah, that was their big problem in that game. Is everyone's second guessing the fact that they did try and stay aggressive. And
that's a good point.
They did try and keep the foot on the gas, and ultimately weren't able to do it, and that's why they came back.
And to be fair, the Jets
they'd just gone in conservative and run the ball endlessly, they'd be fine.
Okay,
probably.
Maybe it's different every situation. The Jets did get aggressive at the end of the first half.
Maybe 25 is your cutoff point.
Maybe 25 you could start sitting on the ball a little bit. But they did get a little aggressive before the end of the half. Josh McCown forces a throw into coverage. Malcolm Butler with a big interception that really turned that game. New England scored before the half to tie it up at 14. And then, we have to talk about this fumble touchdown thing. We love pictures and we love, nice images. We did get one brought to our attention that had a beautiful breakdown of the silly NFL touchback rule, where essentially you can fumble the ball out of bounds anywhere on the field and maintain possession except this one little small area where you magically lose possession if the ball happens to go over the pylon or into the end zone. Your thoughts on the touchback rule in this Jets play? If you guys didn't see it, essentially Austin Seferian-Jenkins is reaching for the pylon. The ball, I would say, barely gets moved a little bit in his hands. So by the letter of the law, he slightly lost possession as he happened to be going over the pylon, which is automatically a touchback, even though he regained possession.
Yeah.
It was absurd. So even the Patriots were like, come on, really? That was a touchdown.
There's two parts to it. There's the first where you talk about the actual rule itself. Does it make any sense for a team to lose possession just because they fumble the ball in the end zone, as opposed to, as we said, if you fumble the ball out of bounds anywhere else in the field, you get the ball back. It doesn't advance, but you get it back. So
no, it doesn't make any sense. And we saw this last week with the Rams against the Seahawks. It does pop up a few times a year.
Yeah, definitely. It's usually a case of, they lose the ball in a major way and it bounces all the way through the back of the end zone and out it goes and you lose the ball. I don't know that it's a completely ridiculous rule. I don't like it, but I can see the argument for it. The second part is this specific instance where the ball left being locked in his hands for a split second. He got it back within a split second without it going anywhere. And they're claiming that because it was lost in the split second of going over the pylon, it doesn't he completely lost possession out of bounds and away it goes.
It wasn't even officially a fumble.
Yeah.
Right? So for it to be officially a fumble, the ball has to hit the ground. It was not even officially a fumble. It was literally just, and this wasn't even like a catch, no catch situation. This was a catch. He'd been running. He's completely established as a runner. This is a runner kind of lost control of the ball in the middle of the air at the perfect time where the ball went over the pylon.
And I think that losing control thing is the thing that needs to be better defined, or at least better adhered to, because it never left him. I mean, it rattled around within the frame of his arms and body. So he didn't have
your ball. He still
exactly.
Had it.
He didn't have it 100% in his grasp, not moving. But at what point was the ball not in his control? I mean, he had control of the ball the entire time, with two defenders there trying to get at it. So it's not like, there was no threat to take the ball away. There were two guys right there in attendance, and the ball never left his possession, at which point how did he lose control of it? I mean,
Right.
It wasn't the tightest control you'll ever see in your life, but I don't think you can say that he lost control of it, at least to the point of where you're saying that definition is the difference between scoring a touchdown and turning the ball over.
So, like, losing control should involve leaving your hands.
I think
This
losing
didn't even,
control.
This, like you said, shuffled around in his arms,
Yeah.
essentially, rather than actually leaving his arms, leaving his hands.
I think losing control for these purposes, when it's such a huge swing in what you're looking for, it has to be the thing comes all the way out and it's gone. You know, like if he'd lost the ball and it got fumbled completely out of bounds, fine. But if it's just a case of, for one split second, it isn't locked 100% within his grasp, it's way over the top.
This is one of those things where the replay was getting looked at because it was ruled a touchdown, had to be ruled, and everybody's talking about, we just need to see if the ball went over the pylon. That's what we're checking. Did the ball go over the pylon? We have to check that. The announcers were thinking that. I know I was thinking that. I felt like fans at home were thinking that. And then the ref drops a well actually on him, like he's PFF over here talking with Sports Illustrated, as we will this week, about some of the best young cornerbacks in the NFL. He's like, well, actually, I got a new way to take touchdowns off the board. Let me show you this one. You guys didn't think of this, but let me show you this one. If that's what's happening with the rules, I feel like that's a little too far. If you're coming up with an answer that nobody ever even thought was possible, that's a little too much.
This feels like you're just trying too hard to take common sense out of the job of the officials. Like, even if you work on the basis that technically speaking, in the letter of the law, this is the right call, it should be a case of, yeah, but it just isn't. I mean, from a football point of view, if you're the official and you go under the hood and you look at this, you should have the power to say, look, this is ridiculous. There's no way we are taking this touchdown off the board because of that. But they can't, because they don't want the official to have, common sense. They want the official to adhere to this strict black and white code that is the letter of the law.
They went well actually on us.
They did.
That was the big thing. I'm going to go out of order on your list here, Sam.
Uh-oh.
Injuries.
Yeah.
Poor Aaron Rodgers. Look, I just want to apologize to Green Bay Packers fans.
Okay.
It's tough, man. You don't want your whole season. The Packers, maybe more than some of these other teams, rely on their superstar quarterback. They've got this otherwise flawed roster where you wouldn't look at their roster in isolation and be like, yep, Super Bowl caliber. But once you say, hey, Aaron Rodgers is the QB, you're like, oh, okay, he can do that. Now he's gone, out for the season, broken collarbone. That's tough on the fans. So I hate seeing injuries in general. I don't like the fact that Odell Beckham's down and that J.J. Watt's down and all these superstars, even the average guys, even the backups. I don't want to see anybody get hurt. But when Aaron Rodgers goes down, that's an absolute game changer. Potentially ruins the season for fans. It's tough. It's a tough one, tough pill to swallow. So I want to send my condolences to Green Bay Packers fans. Might make for a tough season. Brett Hundley in line to take over. You saw a little bit of Hundley in your Pac-12 action through the years, right?
Yeah.
Any faith in Hundley taking over for Rodgers?
No. I was never entirely sure why people liked Brett Hundley. I think the athleticism and the traits and the physicality, the kind of the tools, if you like, were what got a lot of people excited about him, but he just has never been a particularly good quarterback, which I guess for a quarterback is quite a downside.
At some point you do have to play football well. And now Hundley, I don't think Hundley was bad in college. I don't think he was ever really a first-round prospect. There was a point early in his career where I did think he had some Donovan McNabb type of potential. He's got a good arm and very athletic. I do think he'll find a way to win some games with Green Bay if he gets a shot. He'll have some games where if they could build around his skill set a little bit, keep the pass game simple, use his athleticism. You made the point before we got on here, wondering, are they going to change that offense? Because if we look at what Houston's done with Deshaun Watson, they've built around his skill set quite a bit, made things a little bit easier for him, added in just enough quarterback-designed runs and easy reads for him. They're working around his skill set a little bit. Can they do that with Hundley, who, in general, if he has to read plays out, will take a little bit too long in the pocket. He's a little bit like Deshaun Kaiser in that respect, but he's very athletic, has a good enough arm to make the necessary throws. So there's some good and bad in there. It's just a matter of can you accentuate those positives with what they have in Green Bay.
Yeah, it's interesting because this Green Bay offense has seemed so reluctant to change anything over the past few years, even when they're struggling. The answer to when they're having problems appears to be, we'll just get it back on track. We're not going to make adjustments. We're not going to change the offense. We're not going to adjust what we're doing. We're just going to get better at what we're doing and execute better. And that's kind of fine when you've got Jordy Nelson and Aaron Rodgers and everybody at the peak of their powers. But when you suddenly lose Aaron Rodgers and you go to a backup, Brett Hundley, who's nowhere near as talented, is that going to be your answer again? No, we're not changing anything. We just need to execute better. Or do you go and try and change things? I mean, backup quarterback has become this interesting prospect in the NFL, where it used to be that you would just get the guy that kind of, I think, best reflected your starter, and so you're in the best possible situation to continue if he goes down in exactly the same way that you were operating when he was there, only at a much worse level because the backup isn't as good.
Right.
Whereas now you've got teams who have intriguing backups, and if the starter goes down, they're prepared to change the offense. Junk what we're doing and let's build something that this guy can work with, because that's how we're going to win some games. And maybe they won't do that if he's only going to be in there for a couple of weeks during a season to cover for something, like a tweaked hamstring. But when this is now your starter going forward for the rest of this year, you either do that or you try and make him perform in a system that is clearly not playing to his strengths, and you basically, make your own bed at that point.
Well, yeah, I think Green Bay has to adjust things. It can't be as simple as just a bunch of isolation routes. And again, your point, it was a bunch of isolation routes, and it's like, hey, if Rodgers doesn't find him within the scheme, he'll just break out of the pocket, be creative, and he's got this great rapport with Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams, and they'll make things happen. You can't go into the game like that. The thing to keep an eye on with Hundley, too many negative plays as far as sacks, even things that won't show up on the stat sheet. His last year at UCLA, on pressured snaps alone, he was sacked 30.7% of the time when pressured. That was highest in all of college football that year among Power 5 quarterbacks. And then just checking that number out, even in the preseason, 7th highest out of 31 top qualifying preseason quarterbacks, 26.8%. He's always taken more sacks than the quarterbacks around him. Little things like that. Those are the types of things that I think you're going to have to watch out for in Green Bay.
Yeah, I don't think he has a great feel for the pocket at all. I think he's got the ability to move around. He's got an arm. He can make some plays. We'll see some good from him, but I think overall it's going to be some problems.
So some of the run-pass option stuff that Green Bay's incorporated for Rodgers, there are enough elements in there that they've tinkered with that I think just have to be a bigger part of the offense for Hundley. Over to San Francisco, not an injury, but new quarterback C.J. Beathard, not beat hard Mike Renner. C.J. Beathard's going to take over for Brian Hoyer. He played about a half game yesterday against the Washington Redskins. It was a little ugly for him at times, but they nearly pulled that one off behind Beathard, who has some good and bad to his game. Any general thoughts there, Sam, before I read some? I'm going to read some snippets from the PFF draft guide from last year.
Nice. I was interested that the Bobby Hoyer appears to have turned into Bobby Hoyer before his regular Halloween slot this year. He appears to have moved up the process a little bit. Maybe advancing age is moving the deadline a little bit.
A lot of my offseason analysis centered around the numbers that you pulled out this offseason, where his passer rating pre-Halloween was about 90 and post-Halloween about 70.
Brian becomes Bobby.
And I assured 49ers fans that you're gonna
be fine.
You're gonna like Brian Hoyer. You're gonna like him. He's gonna win you some games. But
no,
the Bobby Slowick revenge game did not go as planned.
No,
they found another way to lose in Washington, and it looks like C.J. Beathard has been announced as the starter going forward. He was a mid-round pick for the 49ers. By all accounts, Kyle Shanahan really, really liked him. He was an interesting guy just because out of Iowa. He wasn't a great quarterback at Iowa. He showed some good things. He's got a pretty good arm. I'll read a couple of the things that Zach Robinson, quarterback expert, he combined with me to write all these quarterback profiles, all a part of PFF Edge in last year's draft guide. You guys can check it out. But we said about Beathard a couple little things. Arm is powerful with consistent zip at each level of the field, so he does have a pretty good arm. Can experience taking drops, diagnosing defenses from under center, which is nice. He's ran some pro type passing progressions over at Iowa, good understanding of timing routes, and anticipates well outside the numbers. So those are some of his positives. Some of the negatives, questionable touch. He's kind of a flat ball thrower. You could see that on some of his throws yesterday. His best throw, seam route with pretty good zip. Throwing with touch is a little bit inconsistent. Limited feel in the pocket. Vision is inconsistent. Zach called him a pick and stick guy, which essentially means whatever he sees pre-snap, he's going to stick with it post-snap no matter what happens post-snap. Leads to some ugly passes. We saw that yesterday with a dropped interception where he forced the ball on a stick route, actually. So, and then questionable decision-making late in the down. Tries to make too much happen. Forces a good number of throws. So we had him as a developmental type of quarterback. The Niners are in a developmental type of season. They're very much in the quarterback market for next year. So just like we said last week about Kevin Hogan, just go see what you got.
Yeah,
By the way, the Kevin Hogan experiment
didn't work too well.
Yeah, we're just shaking our head.
Well,
as of recording time, Cleveland has said they don't know who's going to be starting next week at quarterback.
And they genuinely don't have any idea. Like, it seems to be their standard approach to the quarterback position right now.
They don't know.
When we talked a bit about how Kevin Hogan was an intriguing guy because arm, athleticism, all these kind of things, that looked like the 2014 Kevin Hogan at Stanford, and that guy was terrible.
Yesterday's
Kevin Hogan.
One of the worst grades we've given out.
Oh, he was terrible. I mean, he was just
while.
missing like routine swing passes going 1.5 yards over the running back's head straight into somebody else's arms. Like the thing that made Kevin Hogan intriguing is that he developed massively from that guy. So if he's gone back to that, I mean, maybe that was just the worst day of his life at the office and it happened to be on his NFL debut. Or maybe, you take the Stanford VR system, the virtual reality stuff that he was working with, out of the equation and he goes back to being 2014 Kevin Hogan. But either way, I mean, you would have to be pretty stuck on Kevin Hogan, or at least on wanting to give him a second chance to go back to that guy after that performance. It was the kind of thing where even if you were intrigued by his potential going forward, that was a bad enough performance that you would almost chuck it out the window immediately. The thing that I came out of that game thinking was, just how bad must Cody Kessler wonder that the Browns think he is, having sat on the sideline all this season, watched Deshaun Kaiser play his way to the bench with some horrendous play, watch Kevin Hogan jump him on the depth chart, go out there and play one of the worst games anybody's ever seen. Kessler just sitting there asking, what exactly
Do you want to have a word to the haters right now? Do you need to have a word?
I don't have much more to say. Cody Kessler played okay as a third-round rookie when he wasn't expected to be ready to start.
Right.
He has some limitations. He's never going to have the world's strongest arm. He's usually going to, he's pretty small, so he may have some durability concerns, and he definitely holds on to the ball too long in the pocket.
Especially for a guy that's supposed to be this quick-hitting game manager type.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are limitations
there. So there's some issues there. But again, you're talking about a guy who was a third-round rookie and was not expected to be ready to start. So what he showed as a rookie, you can't focus too much on the stuff that is the problem because he's supposed to be raw. So the question is, what's the upside? What can he get better at with a year's development and a year in the system? And
I think we were hoping that the arm would get better, and there were rumors that it did in the offseason. But in preseason, it didn't look that much improved.
No.
Unfortunately. That does seem like something historically, though. You can improve arm strength. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, we hear about them all the time. Aaron Rodgers.
And I don't think it needs to get much better. It's viable. It's not good, but it's okay.
It just gives you more leeway.
Of course
Those outside the numbers throws and stuff. Like he has to have perfect timing. And we just talked about he doesn't have perfect timing. More zip gives you that.
He doesn't have the kind of arm where you look at it and say this guy can't play in the NFL. So he can be out there starting, especially when you consider what they're starting at the moment. But the other thing is his play under pressure last year. I think he had a passer rating in the 90s under pressure. That's extremely good. The good things about Kessler's rookie season were interesting, and everybody so far on the roster has played themselves off the field. So why would you not put him out there?
No, I hear you, man. I would rather believe the theory that you brought up on the preview podcast that the Browns we know that they're in rebuilding mode, still forever rebuilding mode. They're not tied to any of these quarterbacks. Kaiser got a bunch of games to play. We thought that it was Hogan's time to get a big chunk of games. We saw 5 games from Kessler last year, and your 5-game sample theory I thought was a fair one until Hogan does so poorly. I still think you want you still want to get more out of Kaiser. You
Yeah.
still want to see more of Kaiser because he's young and you want to see him improve and handle adversity and all that stuff. But it still comes down to we're not putting Kessler in the Pro Bowl. And sometimes we speak to the haters a little bit too much because you get some of that negative feedback. The negative feedback that you got before the season is when you said, hey, Kessler is the best quarterback on the roster. It doesn't mean that he's the guy going forward. It doesn't mean we're putting a yellow jacket on him to go to the Hall of Fame. Simply that.
And so far,
he's the best quarterback on the roster. That's all.
Even without taking the field, he's almost certainly the best quarterback on the roster, given what the other two have done so far this season.
It's a gold jacket, right? Did I say yellow? It's a gold jacket.
Gold jacket, yeah. So, that hurdle that he has to clear in order to be the best quarterback on the roster, given what they've done this season, is a pretty low one.
Yeah, so
the problem with the 5-game...
We're just curious about Kessler getting a
The problem with the 5-game sample thing is there just aren't that many games to go around. So, you have to either write a guy off completely after 5 games.
Well, if you're planning on losing every game every year, you can practice 3 quarterbacks, but you get 3 QBs tested out per year.
Yeah, but you need to decide on them at that point. See, that's the thing. Kessler, you would be deciding on Kessler after that rookie season in which we're saying there was some bad in there was some good in there. He wasn't supposed to be ready, so you kind of write that season off. He wasn't bad enough to look at that and say there's no way this guy can play. But he wasn't good enough that you can be tied to him.
Oh, that sounds like purgatory, Kessler.
Exactly.
That's purgatory right there.
But that's why you need more, you need to give him a second shot because you don't know after the first shot. Unless you're saying that, unless we see Russell Wilson out there for the first 5 games, we're moving on. That's basically, that appears to be their strategy at the moment, is we just throw as many quarterbacks out there as humanly possible. And if we see Russell Wilson within 3-4 games, we'll know about it. Otherwise, we're throwing a dart at the next guy.
In theory, I'm all for it.
I'm just saying
you have to find your quarterback.
I'm just saying that there's probably a level below Russell Wilson that might be a more realistic place to aim.
Right.
You might not get a Russell Wilson in the next 5 years, but you might find a Tyrod Taylor. You
might find a Tyrod Taylor. You might not find Russell Wilson. You might find someone even better.
Or an Alex Smith. You might find a guy who's not going to be that top 5 quarterback, but he might be a top 15 quarterback who you can win games with.
And Cody Kessler's top end looks a little bit like an Alex Smith if he can improve in a couple areas.
Yeah.
Quick break to tell you guys about our friends over at Draft or Draft.com. So search Draft in your app store. Download it right now. Seriously, you won't regret it. A lot of fun we're having over here at PFF playing fantasy football at Draft. Best ball leagues. They've got some full season leagues that we've been playing in. You've got some head-to-head drafts. You have 3-person drafts. You can win real money over at Draft. And today, we're going to give you free money, a free $3 deposit. Once you make your first deposit over at Draft, you get a free $3 game so you can get in there, see what it's all about, see how easy it is. Easy to draft, fill your team, and also easy to keep up with it because you don't have to make any moves. You don't have to make any transactions. You don't have to worry about injuries when Aaron Rodgers goes down. Next man up, best ball leagues. That's how they do it. They have games for NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, even golf. Basketball games look like they're heating up right now on the site. So go check it out, draft.com or Draft in your app store, and go get your free $3 game when you make your first deposit. Just use the promo code PFF. All right, we got a lot of Kessler talk.
We did.
On here for a guy that's not going to play football this season. Let's discuss Adrian Peterson. My notes from you. Adrian Peterson not dead after all.
Yeah.
Is that the headline?
Turns out he's alive.
I'm just going to read Skype chats.
Done.
If we just read our Skype chats.
I don't think we could get away with that without getting sued.
If we read 20% of our Skype chats, I feel like that'd be
We're closer there.
A good podcast. Adrian Peterson not dead after all.
26 carries, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a fumble because it's Adrian Peterson.
You have to fumble.
It turns out he's not done. He looked like 2012 Adrian Peterson all over again.
This was honestly what I expected to see
in the Saints.
With the Saints,
because they have an offensive line.
But here is the curious part about the Saints. Mark Ingram, I think, has been underrated for a couple of years now, and he tore it up yesterday in that Madden glitch of a game against the Lions. So Mark Ingram's been underrated. They go and draft Alvin Kamara, and Kamara is the young and most athletic guy on the roster, and he's more versatile than all those guys. So there was certainly some snap issues to deal with over there. Peterson felt a little redundant to Ingram.
Yeah.
But I felt like if he was given the opportunity in New Orleans, and I thought, well, since they paid for him, they might give him the opportunity. I thought that was what we were going to see. Now Arizona gives him the opportunity, and, oh, look, we have a viable runner.
I think his problem in New Orleans, we never found out what he was in New Orleans because it turned out with those three running backs and them kind of rolling with the hot hand and Peterson not being able to play on passing downs, essentially, there just weren't any snaps for him.
In the early games, they were giving up 30 points a game. And
he was getting like 6 snaps a game, and that wasn't going to get it done. So the trade made perfect sense, and I just don't think we got to see what he could be behind that line in New Orleans. My concern in Arizona was that their offensive line and their blocking was so bad that I didn't think we'd see what he could do there for a completely different reason. I thought we'd see, his final years in Minnesota where he was just getting to the line. It was a wall of bodies, and Adrian Peterson was going nowhere. But that line actually blocked really well. So this is what's interesting to this.
And Jermaine Gresham.
That's where I was going with this. This is what's interesting to this, or about this to me, is Jermaine Gresham had like the best game of his life run blocking. That's not happening consistently every week this season. So
maybe it was just the Bucs.
Their line actually did okay. I think a lot of it was the Bucs. Their line actually did okay this week. The Bucs, for some reason, couldn't defend the run at all. Vernon Hargreaves was doing some weird stuff at a corner and allowing a huge amount of yardage because of it. So Adrian Peterson proved that with the right situation and the right holes, he can definitely still make some big plays. Now, I'm not saying that the holes were wide open and anybody could have got that yardage. This was Adrian Peterson doing what Adrian Peterson does. I'm just more interested in what this looks like when they face a defense that actually defends the run properly and we see more of the Arizona blocking that we saw from the first few weeks of the season. Do we go back to Adrian Peterson just not being able to find any room because there isn't any there?
No, I think that's a fair point. But for at least 1 week, it was fun seeing Larry Fitzgerald on the field, Adrian Peterson on the field. Carson Palmer starts the game, 14 for 14. Then he started to regress back to Carson Palmer down the stretch, whatever. But it was pretty fun to watch that Arizona offense, even though they almost blew that game. That was another game you just ready to write off. They were killing Tampa Bay before Fitzmagic pulls off his magic and nearly brings them back. 38-33 final. Arizona beats Tampa Bay. Hey, we said on the preview we thought it was going to be Jameis versus Carson Palmer. If for nothing else, there's going to be exciting plays. There's going to be positives and negatives and great plays and terrible plays. I think it lived up to the hype, even with Jameis getting hurt. By all accounts, Jameis is going to play through this shoulder injury. There was no break there like Aaron Rodgers had, but certainly something to monitor. Jameis off to his usual roller coaster like beginning so far this season. A lot of positives and a lot of negatives so far.
And Peterson's still no kind of factor in the pass game. Was on the field for 15 passing snaps. 13 of them he was out in a pass pattern, and 2 of them he was kept in to pass protect.
What else we have as far
targets.
And no target? Well, I think old dog, new tricks. We're not going to be seeing Adrian Peterson running a whole bunch of pass routes at this point in his career. I want to touch on this Lions-Saints game, speaking of games that were just an absolute blowout before it randomly became not a blowout. The Lions just find a way to get back into games in the fourth quarter.
I don't even know what you take from this game. It was just chaos. I mean, they were getting absolutely destroyed. How big did that defeat get? It was bigger than the Falcons game in the Super Bowl, which is the second time we brought that up today.
Sorry, Falcons.
But it was a bigger deficit at one point than that. It was 28 points or 30 points or something like that. So had the Lions come all the way back and won that, it would have been the largest come-from-behind victory in NFL history, I believe. Because the previous one was that Oilers game. The Oilers, was it the Bills? Whatever that was.
That was like a 30.
Yeah, that was the single biggest deficit up until this game had the Lions been able to come all the way back. Now, they didn't quite manage it, but they got it within a score.
I just couldn't believe some of the plays that were coming out of this game. Matthew Stafford had, 7 batted passes?
Yeah.
So within a matter of 2 minutes, part of the Lions' comeback was essentially a batted pass at the line of scrimmage, which was really just A'Shaun Robinson jumping up and picking off Drew Brees. And I don't even think there was anything Brees could do about it. He was throwing a route. And at PFF, a lot of times on batted passes, we're just like, look, the quarterback's not eyeballing the defensive tackles. They're not trying to avoid batted passes. It's generally just a really good play by the defensive line as far as batted passes. Offensive line coaches like to dock the offensive linemen for not keeping their hands down and stuff. Like, that's kind of ridiculous. It's just a great play by the defensive lineman to bat a pass. When you're A'Shaun Robinson and you go up and pick off a pass and then you step 1 yard into the end zone, an even better play. So we have a pick six of like 1 yard from A'Shawn Robinson. Within 2 minutes, the Lions are backed up. They get a batted pass, tipped up, caught in the end zone for a pick six. Like, when was the last time you saw a defensive lineman batted pass pick six, never mind two, in a matter of 2 minutes on both sides of the ball?
Yeah, there were multiple pick sixes by defensive linemen in this game, and that probably wasn't even the most crazy thing about this game. It was absolute insanity. Marvin Jones makes one of the catches of the season in the end zone for a touchdown. This game was just ludicrous.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was one of those, my Madden game has too many glitches, I'm going to return it because it just is unrealistic. And it was real life yesterday. Hey, the Saints are now 3-2. They've won 3 in a row, so keep an eye on them. After their disastrous defensive performances earlier in the year, they are what we thought they were, what I thought they were earlier in the year, a competitive team in the very competitive NFC South.
They are, I think, moving in the right direction. I'm more intrigued, though, about what you take out of this from the Lions' perspective, because we were, earlier in the game when they were getting destroyed, we were like, look, it's vindicating the PFF stats, the ELO rankings that have been harsher on them and us that have been harsher on them than Lions fans, because they win these games or they get in close games. And when they were getting waxed by the Saints, we're like, see, we were right. And then they come 30 points back, they make it a real game and almost snatch the win. I mean, they still lost, so I guess you can kind of claim it as a victory, but it's not like the sweeping defeat we thought it was going to be earlier in the game.
I would just say the Lions do have something about them. Not giving full credit to Matthew Stafford, but he does have this ability to throw them back into games, and they've had this magic about them for the last 2 years, this overachieving magic to either win games and pull them off or to take a game like this and make it close. It is always fascinating in the NFL. It feels like it's easier, and there was quirky stuff that happened for this game, but it's easier to come back in the NFL these days, right? Because it's more of a passing league. When you're sitting on a 14 or a 21-point lead, it's not as wide as it used to be. And I think it actually puts a little bit of pressure on the team in the lead to figure it out. Are we running clock? I mean, 8 minutes of NFL time is 2 to 3 possessions, right? It's potentially 3 possessions of football. It's not like the game is over. So it does put a little pressure on the team in the lead. So I think that's part of the reason why you see some of these comebacks too. It's just no game is really out of reach.
The Lions also are going to be so much better when they get Taylor Decker back at left tackle, because I don't think Decker is phenomenal or anything, but he makes that leap from disastrous problem to adequate line play at left tackle, with Greg Robinson one of the worst left tackles in the NFL. And the real problem with that is that he is definitely the best person they have right now to be starting at left tackle.
Right.
Greg Robinson is terrible, and Greg Robinson's backups are worse than Greg Robinson. So when they go from that to Taylor Decker at left tackle, that's just a huge upgrade.
Taylor Decker was quite good last year. If you guys are playing the PFF podcast drinking game, go ahead and take a sip, because that was the part of the episode weekly, almost every episode, where we trash Greg Robinson. Had to come up at some point.
Better that than TJ Clemmings.
Quick break to tell you guys that this episode is brought to you by PredictionMachine.com. Prediction Machine, a new generation in sports analytics where they simulate the games 50,000 times before they're actually played. Make better picks with proven data-driven analysis. Subscribe at Prediction Machine today and earn a $5 credit that can be used towards the purchase of any package. All right, what else we have for craziness yesterday before we wrap it up? Don't forget, guys, you guys completely fuel our Wednesday mailbag edition. You guys can hit us up, podcasts@profootballfocus.com, with your questions. Hit us up on Twitter as well. We already have some good ones coming in. And don't forget, all of the fun numbers and stats that we use here are all a part of PFF Edge and PFF Elite over at profootballfocus.com. What were the new Elite things we're giving away here, Sam, the last couple weeks? Got game grades. We got, the monthly. PFF Elite Monthly. This was a huge hit last year, and we just had to bring it back. So if you guys are doing DFS, if you guys just want a quick hitting access to our signature stats, go ahead and check it out. PFF Elite is available monthly. How about the Dolphins going into Atlanta and pulling that off?
Yeah, this Miami team, or this Atlanta team rather, really isn't that good. We're seeing them take that big step backwards. The Super Bowl team that that failed. The Super Bowl team that, the losing Super Bowl team forever seemed like it was cursed and couldn't make the playoffs the season afterwards. The Falcons are in a battle to stop that happening.
So the way their roster is going, I feel like it was somewhat predictable. I was not expecting them to be a team that's scoring 17 points at home against teams like the Bills and the Miami Dolphins.
I think Rich Eisen said that the AFC East now has a better record in Atlanta's new home than Atlanta does.
They do. The more wins. The Bills and Dolphins have won more games there. I'm more concerned. Matt Ryan, he graded well for us. The stats didn't show it yesterday. But I'm more concerned about that offense regressing. I kept saying all offseason, regression because of Kyle Shanahan, because of all these different things. And we've seen elements of that. But on the other side, the defense, even without Vic Beasley, all of a sudden, actually looks a little bit better. They're rushing the passer. They're more well-rounded rushing the passer. They're getting Dontari Poe and Grady Jarrett. They're getting all these different guys. Brooks Reed getting after the quarterback. Tack McKinley. They're faster on defense. Everything on paper, they should be better, except the regression on offense has been worse than expected.
Yeah.
It's just a weird season right now for the Falcons because I still think the roster is solid and in a very flawed league, right? We go up and down every single team. Well, this team's weak here and this team's weak there. They're very flawed, but I thought they'd be flawed in different plays. I thought the offense would be a lot better than they have been, and that's been the big issue. All right, stats of the week, Sam. You've been dying to give me your stats. I got a couple over here now. I'll do it on the fly. I'll ad lib. I'll just read signature stats to you from PFF Elite. What do you got for me?
So, Matthew Stafford, you mentioned earlier, had 7 batted passes in that game yesterday. The Madden glitch game. But I put it in context. I've taken the statistic and made it better by adding smarts to it. See, that's where you fell down. You didn't add the smarts to it.
All right, Sam. Stop talking to your fans.
Matthew Stafford had 7 batted passes yesterday. Dak Prescott has 7 batted passes in his NFL career.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. That's good context.
There you go.
That has to be a record, right?
I would think
for
so.
Us?
It's one fewer batted pass than Russell Wilson had last season. Russell Wilson of short quarterback fame, who must therefore get endless batted passes at the line.
Ben made the point to us, Stockwell, that what did he study? 6'3" is the height for most batted passes. Is that right?
Yeah, but that was just because most quarterbacks are 6'3".
Oh, he was making a joke.
No. I mean, they do have the most batted passes, but it's because most quarterbacks are 6'3".
Right.
It's not that being 6'3", it's somehow conducive to having more passes batted to the line. There's basically no correlation between height and batted passes.
Well, that's because most 5'11" or 6-foot quarterbacks probably aren't making it to the NFL if they've got batted pass problems.
The ones that are able to get around that. But basically, batted passes is not a thing of height. It's just not. You're not any more likely or otherwise of getting your passes batted at the line if you're 5'10" versus 6'4".
All right, my stat's going to focus on the Philadelphia Eagles. Quietly. Is it quietly? I mean, we were expecting this, but quietly one of the best offensive lines in the league. It's a little different when Vaitai has to play. But when he doesn't have to play, and it's Lane Johnson and Jason Peters, currently our top 2 offensive tackles when we're over 190 pass blocking snaps, 2 and 3 in pass blocking efficiency. Lane Johnson, number 2 at 97.9. Jason Peters, number 3 at 97.5, just ahead of Trent Williams. So you've got the NFC East actually taking up 3 out of the top 4 in pass blocking efficiency among tackles.
I like it. Okay, past 2 weeks, Aaron Donald.
Rest in peace.
Very different player. Aaron Donald has been on something of a tear, being the best pass rushing defensive tackle in the league again. The past 2 weeks, he has totaled 20 quarterback pressures, which is pretty obscene. That would rank 4th overall among defensive tackles for the entire season, just in the last 2 weeks.
It would rank.
It ranks exactly the same as Kawan Short, and is only 4 behind Geno Atkins, who is the second best pass rushing defensive tackle in the NFL.
So we further see Donald separating himself from all other humanity.
Yes.
Much like we saw J.J. Watt do for years.
Yeah.
Rest in peace to him again as well. Do we need a weekly Jalen Ramsey number?
I don't know, do we?
So I just wanted to pull out the number. It might end up on our Well Actually this week for Sports Illustrated. We're talking about some of the best young cornerbacks in the NFL, guys like Jalen Ramsey, Marshawn Lattimore, Tre'Davious White, guys that are already up in that top 10 cornerback conversation despite being so young in the league. If you go back to Jalen Ramsey's last 11 games, so the 6 games from this year, the last 5 from last year, unbelievably elite play, allowing only 41% of completions to be thrown his way, and 13 pass breakups and 4 interceptions in 11 games. Those are some absurd numbers.
They are.
In addition to what's his passer rating allowed this year? About 35.
35.2.
Just this year in the six games. So his last 11 games, cherry picking a little bit but his down the stretch numbers last year were absurd. Combine them with this year, we got some elite Jalen Ramsey play.
Yeah. So to illustrate just how bad the Denver Broncos were against the Giants in the game that should have seen coming but didn't, Trevor Siemian's passer rating under pressure this week. Want to take a stab at what that might have been?
0.
Yes. 0.0. A passer rating of nothing under pressure.
He was pretty bad.
Well, yeah. He was, in fact, terrible, apparently. Passer rating of 0.
I don't have much else.
No, you're tapped out.
Siemian had some of my concerns with Siemian. They popped up again, right? That was
the not being very good thing.
The consistency. He was really good early in the season. He looked like he may have turned the corner in a few areas, but just poor decision making. And when he faces too high looks where he's got to read things out a little bit, he can struggle. That's the Giants' specialty. That would have been the one thing to point out. That was it. That was the key. Deep down in the PFF database, it shows that Siemian against too high looks, especially quarters, he is terrible. That's the one number that we should have leaned on to say the Giants were going to upset them.
Yeah, I don't know that would have overcome the other 17 things that said they were going to win, though.
Look at it in the future. Siemian against quarters coverage or against too high looks. So they lost to Buffalo, quarters team. They lost to the Giants, a quarters team. That's the key going forward. All right, my number, Nelson Aguilar. Did we use this one yet? He's leading the league in wide receiver rating, 149.
No.
Back from the dead. I'm just all Eagles today. I am just appealing to our friendly Eagles fans because you guys came out and you showed yourself. You guys said, hey, we're friendly Eagles fans do exist, so I'm giving you guys some good nuggets. Nelson Aguilar, passer rating when targeted, 149, currently leads the NFL, 321 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Can I still claim Nelson as a victory if he turns good? Because I kind of lost faith in that one and wrote him off.
Yeah, nobody cares about you writing him off. We didn't hold you to that.
Okay, good. Because I really liked Nelson coming out.
Yeah, he's good.
But then his first 2 years,
he looked bad last couple of years.
Bad. Real bad.
It is difficult to remember that prospects to Sam just fumbled a football. That's going to be, Taylor, we making him run laps? What do we do? What's the punishment here?
It's push-ups.
Push-ups. Sam, we're going to need push-ups.
How many?
20.
That's a lot of push-ups.
I was going to say 50, but
50? No, 50 wouldn't happen. 20 we could get away with.
Well, not necessarily in a row. You could spread them out.
Oh, no. He's got to be all at once, surely.
Okay, so you have to do 20 push-ups. We're talking about Nelson Aguilar. Don't give up on prospects too early is what I was going to say. And also, don't forget, can you guys follow us at PFF_podcast? If you guys are listening, it'll update all the podcasts whenever they come out. And you can also vote on fun polls like what should we do with Mike Renner for this weekend's preview podcast.
What was the upshot of that?
Where are we with that on the poll?
Yeah, what was Renner's official punishment?
Taylor, can you give me some so it was a 7-day poll, so there's still time to vote. So if you guys check the at PFF_podcasts account, there is a poll that requests your vote for what we're going to do with Mike Renner and his punishment.
And if you missed the reason why, it's because Renner stood us up.
Completely stood us up for the preview podcast. So we have to take action. And what do we have, Taylor, so far?
So currently, for what his suspension should be, leading is one full podcast at 40% of the votes. Second,
one full podcast.
Wow.
One show intro at 37%.
So right now it's between he's going to miss either a full show intro or a full podcast. I feel
this is the world at the moment. It's polarizing. There's nothing in the middle.
There's nothing in the middle.
It's black or white. He's an entire show he's gone or he's missing
just
the intro.
And he loves his intros. Like it's gonna hit him hard and it's gonna hurt, but he wants to do the whole show. I said, what was number 3? That was a whole game preview, right?
Yeah, that's at 11%.
See, that felt fair. That's what I was pushing for.
The one that's in the middle, the nice, reasonable, moderate response. Nobody's interested in that. Nobody wants to see it.
I'm going to request that our millions and millions of listeners go
and fix the
flood the poll And go, please, at PFF_podcast. Go check it out. Follow that Twitter account, and then go vote. I just want Mike to miss one game preview. I think it's going to send the proper message, but we're still going to get his valuable insight.
I'm amazed that the Twitter poll for Mike Renner's punishment is reflecting modern society with its divisive, polarized nature.
Now, are you going to try to predict whether it is our conservative listeners or our more liberal listeners who voted for the whole show versus just the intro? Are you going to try to piece that together?
No.
Or are we're going to avoid the politics altogether?
I think we're going to avoid it, and I don't even want to go into that headspace. I can't put myself in that position of equating, conservatism or liberalism to which punishment.
I think it's hilarious that we are
Mike.
so polarizing. Please, I think just one game preview is pretty sufficient. Did you have any more stats, or was that was it? You have all
that
three?
Was my 3.
Are we done for the day?
Yeah, we're out.
All right, we're out for today. We've got 3 more episodes this week, though, so please hit that subscribe button, PFF Podcast. And what do we have next? Zach and I will be discussing some quarterbacks, and then we've got the mailbag, podcasts at profootballfocus.com. That's plural, podcasts at profootballfocus.com with your beautiful questions. You guys have been very well engaged in bringing some unbelievable thoughts and questions and insights the last few weeks.
Yeah.
So that'll be for Wednesday, and then the preview podcast with or without Mike Renner. It's going to go down this weekend. Again, don't forget to go check out PFF Edge at profootballfocus.com/PFF-offers. That is the best offer for PFF Edge. And then we're giving away PFF Elite for free. Again, every single week, all you have to do is leave a 5-star review, leave your Twitter handle, or an email address so we can get in touch with you. Elite is a $200 value with our very best stuff, including now our game grades. And then you can grab Elite on a monthly basis. So I do highly suggest, if you guys are on the fence about grabbing PFF Elite, at least give it a shot for a month. Or if you're into DFS and you want to go month to month with it, we have a lot of people doing that as well. So go check it out. For Sam, over here in our Nook, our podcast Nook, we'll talk to you guys next time.